All right, guys, so today we're going to talk about how to clear your hips in the downswing. There are 3 things you have to do with your hips. The timing of them are very important. We're going to go through each one of those. I'm also going to give you my favorite drill so you can help clear your hips during the downswing. But quickly before we dive in, just a quick word from today's video sponsor. I want to talk to you today about LiveView Golf. Now, you guys hear me say all the time that you need feedback when you're practicing. You need to know if you're actually doing what you're trying to do, and the best way to give yourself feedback ultimately is video. And not only is video the best way to give yourself feedback, but being able to see yourself simultaneously as you're doing a movement is the best form of video feedback. It's the best way I've seen to make changes in your swing and be able to correlate the differences between your feels and your reels. LiveView is super easy to use and set up. Simply set it up behind or in front of you. You connect it with your iPad or phone, pop that on the ground. You can actually do your practice, see yourself as you're doing it, the best way to expedite your process. I encourage you guys to check out LiveView Golf. We'll put a link in the description down below with a coupon code. All right, so let's talk about how to clear the hips and the pelvis during the downswing. Now, there's 3 things in terms of hip movement during the downswing that we need to talk about. There is a shifting of the hips, and when we're looking at the hip motion, let's kind of reference where the belt buckle is. If we were looking on video, I'd kind of draw a dot right in the center of the pelvis here. So the first thing is shifting. That means my belt buckle needs to move towards the target some amount. The second thing is rotation, which means my belt buckle needs to turn towards the target some amount. And the third thing is extension, which means eventually my belt buckle needs to start moving up towards the sky some amount. So we have 3 hip motions. We've got shift, which means towards the target. We've got turn or rotation, which means turning towards the target. And then we got extension, which is up towards the sky. Now, it's the blending and timing of those 3 motions which makes the hip work during the downswing work perfectly and look perfectly, or it could be a disaster and not work too good. And so I'm going to show you a drill in a couple of minutes, which I use a lot to get to the end goal of what we want the hips to do. But let's kind of go through each one of these elements, and we're going to pull up Adam Scott. And I use Adam Scott a lot because he just does everything so vanilla. It's a good middle ground model. If we pulled up 100 players, or maybe 100 PGA Tour players, they would not all shift the same amount. They would not all turn the same amount, and they would not all extend the same amount. But there's sort of averages we want to look for, and Adam Scott serves as a good model. And while we're on that topic, these 3 pieces, these hip motions, it's a blend of them, which we'll get into. The golf swing's not made up of all shift with no turn, right? If I looked at impact, all shift with no turn would look like this. That's not normal. It's not all turn with no shift. That's not normal. And it's certainly not just all extension with no shift or turn, right? That might look normal for you, but we don't want that to look normal. So it's a blending. So the timing of them, how I would think about this is from the top of your swing until about halfway down, or about hands about hip high, you're looking to primarily focus on the shifting, which is the belt buckle moving forward. You can see Adam Scott, I put 2 lines down his hips at the top very clearly, okay, regardless of anyone's opinion, he's moving forward of those lines. So he's shifting early, meaning if I drew the line down his belt buckle and it's in the middle of his feet, that belt buckle's moving towards his left heel, and it's doing it from the top until about halfway down primarily. Now notice as he's doing that, is he doing that with his belt buckle? Let's say at the top of his swing, his belt buckle is pointed 45 degrees behind the ball, about 2 feet. Does his belt buckle stay there as he's shifting? No, it does not. His belt buckle, with the red arrows I put on there, as his belt buckle's moving towards his left ankle, which is shifting, he's also turning. So his belt buckle goes from pointed behind the ball to pointed several feet in front of the ball. And this piece, the top, from here to about hip high, it's primarily the first 2 components, which is shifting and turning. So what I would be feeling is I'm trying to get my belt buckle to move forward just inside my left ankle. And as I do that, I'm trying to get my belt buckle to be turning more towards the target. Now, by this time, is my belt buckle gonna face the target? Absolutely not. It's probably gonna face closer to the golf ball. And then past impact, you can see it's pointed several feet in front. So it's turning and shifting early during the downswing. So here, I'm trying to get forward and turn, forward and turn. I feel my belt buckle towards my left ankle. There's pressure working in towards my left foot, right? So that's shifting pressure towards my foot. My belt buckle is going forward and turning. So let's just hit one or two with just that first piece, then we'll talk extension. Belt buckle towards my left ankle and pointed forward. So I'm gonna feel like it's kind of pointed out forward there at impact is my sensation. So shifting and turning in the first half of the downswing. That would be my primary hip motion. Now, that's just a feel, right? I've got to be recording my swing to see if I'm doing both of those correctly. The purpose of clearing your hips, right, and getting your hips forward and turning is mainly solidness of contact. The more I get my hips forward and turning, it helps move my low point forward. It's also going to help me, get my shaft lean. It's going to help me have club face control, create speed, all those things. So that would be the first half. Now, as we look at him from there, he's still, what's happening? He's still shifting some, but not as much. A lot of the shifting is done early, and there's still going to be some. He's still doing what? He's still going to be turning the whole time through, so he keeps doing that. But the second half is really about him continuing turning, and then it's about extending, okay, the third piece of the puzzle. So extending, if I just bent over like this at setup, is me pushing my belt buckle up towards the sky. It's sort of standing up motion, right? So up to the top, I'm shifting and turning till about halfway. Now from here, I'm going to keep turning, but I'm going to start extending, which is pushing my belt buckle up, literally raising my belt line, but pushing my belt buckle up on the way through. Up to the top, shift and turn till about halfway. Now I'm going to turn and extend. Up to the top, shift and turn. So I'm feeling my belt buckle towards my ankle and my belt buckle pointing in front of the golf ball. Then I'm going to feel, keep turning, so belt buckle towards the target, and push my hips up and forward. Shift, turn, turn, extend. Now we're going to talk about a drill to put that into one feel. I understand that's two parts, but just for you to conceptually understand this first, that's how this is going to work. So it's shifting and turning early, and then turning and extending later. Yeah, that one felt solid. So that's sort of how the hip motion works. It's for you to understand how that motion goes. It's not just shift, it's not just turn, it's not just extension. You're blending them, and you're blending the shifting and turning early, then you're blending the turning and extension later. Now, some of you just would like a simple drill, okay, to get to, which is at the end of the video. Maybe should have been at the beginning, but let's talk about that part next. Okay, so the drill that I like to start with in terms of clearing the hips and making sure you get in your follow through correctly is just a simple one with an alignment rod. So if I take my setup position, I've put an alignment rod in front of me. From the face on camera, it's roughly right in line with the outside of my lead foot, like my pinky toes. So keep in mind that's with a little foot flare. So it's kind of just outside my toes with foot flare. If I take my 7-iron to my heel, it's about a club head width from the back of my ankle. So I have it far enough behind me, right? So it's far enough back here, it's kind of on my heel line, where I'm not gonna hit it with my hands, okay? So from the face-on perspective, in line with my ankle, from the down the line, it's kind of right on my ankle line. From the face-on, it's about 1 club head width from my ankle. Now the point of this is I wanna feel as though I'm gonna push my belt buckle during my downswing to get to that stick. For me to push my belt buckle, and really what's going to happen is going to hit my left thigh. So what's going to end up happening is it's going to run in line with my thigh, but I'm feeling like I'm getting my belt buckle to push there. Notice for me to do that, I have to combine all 3 elements. My hips have to be fully turned for me to get my belt buckle close to it. If I didn't turn, my belt buckle would be way over here to the right. I needed to shift some amount. If I didn't shift and I just turned, I would never get to it. And I also need to extend some. I need to extend some to get to it. So I have to combine all 3. If I was just shift, my left hip would get there, not my belt buckle. If I was just turn, I'd never get there. And if I was turn and shift with no extension, I would never get my belt buckle there either. So I have to combine all three of them. This is sort of a drill where it's like, hey, get here, and then maybe you don't have to worry and think so much about what we talked about earlier. That's more just for understanding. So long as you get to this position at the end, you know you've done it fairly well, fairly correct. And if you're watching this video and you want to clear your hips, you either have seen yourself on video, your hips are getting stuck, maybe a coach has told you that, or you have something that you want to improve there. You getting your hips to this follow-through stick should help with the contact. Again, low point forward, should help with your overall club head speed. It should help with your club face control. I mean, there should be some benefits here with this, outside of it just aesthetically looking good. So with the drill here, I would take my normal setup, go back about halfway, push my belt buckle into that stick. Normal setup, back about halfway, push my belt buckle. And again, it's gonna be just left of your belt buckle, but the sensation is trying to get your belt buckle to it. And like all drills, I would do a couple rehearsals, start slow, build up speed, and use video. But as I'm hitting then, I'm trying to get my belt buckle to that stick. That's my sensation. So it's more about me getting there. Then you can check yourself on video and if you're like, hey, well, I got there, but I was kind of late, or I got there, but I didn't quite open up enough. That would probably be the only thing I'd say you might run into. Meaning if you got there, you've shifted enough. If you got there with your belt buckle, you've extended enough. The thing you might not have done is turned enough early enough. From there, I would just be using video, feeling like as you're doing the early part, your belt buckle's shifting and turning. You're just getting your belt buckle to point more forward to the golf ball sooner. So as I get down into like an impact position, you could even be feeling like, instead of it feeling over the ankle and at the ball at this point in time, you're gonna feel like it's over the ankle and like way forward of the ball. Feel like you initiate that sooner. There's some other little micro stuff we could talk about the footwork, the knee work, the hip work, but this is a more overall general sensation of how to clear your hips and your pelvis. Understanding those three elements, you need all of them, it's a blend of them. You might need to feel like the majority of your feel, maybe only one of them because you lack it, but make no mistake, you need all three of those in there. That would be the drill that I would use. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments, leave a comment down below. If you could click the like button, that does help us out a lot, and also click subscribe so you don't miss any videos. Thank you guys for watching.